Before we start, the name is at the top of the screen. She stands clutching her injured arm, her voice trembling with fury as she demands to know why the hell her teammate betrayed her after everything they did to build this team. The teammate throws back that she loved the team too, she was the vice leader after all, but her being with that guy was what ruined everything. Before she can respond, a man behind her lifts his sword and orders her to hurry up and lose already. She jolts upright in bed with a gasp, heart pounding. Disoriented, she looks around, wondering where she is. None of this feels familiar. Panic rising, she rushes to the mirror and sees the bandages wrapping her arm and leg. But it isn't the wounds that make her freeze. It's her reflection. The face staring back isn't hers. Her breath catches as she stammers, "Who the hell is this?" before realization dawns in horror. She's seen this face before. It's Dahlia Agnes. In the game, she was called the tragic villainess. Her mother died right after she was born. Then her stepmother and half-sister, Nana Zelia, made her life hell. They starved her, whipped her, humiliated her. Her father, the maids, no one ever tried to save her. She glances at the bandages and remembers now, the wounds were from when her half-sister framed her, and she was whipped as punishment. Starving for love from her family, Dahlia grew desperate for affection. So desperate she lost sight of everything else. She turned into a villainess who stood in the heroine's way. And after being punished again and again, she finally took her last breath. She looks at her arms in shock, thinking she really reincarnated as Dahlia. Bullied her whole life, turned into the villain and ended up dead. She cannot believe she lived through all that. She still doesn't totally get what's happening, but she has already made up her mind. She is gonna break the game's story and make sure Dahlia gets a happy ending. Now she just needs to figure out how to give her that happy ending. One of the first events that set Dahlia down the path of destruction was getting picked as the fiancé candidate of one of the romance targets, the first Prince Echorecaps. Easiest way would be to avoid getting picked as a candidate. She tries to recall what it was that Dahlia truly wanted. Her gaze drifts to the knights training in the courtyard outside her window, and she can't help but think how cool they look. She's always wanted to be that strong too. The word strong stirs something in her, reminding her of how hard she once worked to build their girl gang and grow stronger together. Maybe in this world she can make her dream as Kaori come true alongside Dahlia's. Royal Knights. They accept anyone, regardless of status. She makes up her mind, this time, she's doing it. In this world, she's going to rise to the top as a knight. But first, she needs to heal up and build some stamina. After that, she stayed holed up in her room doing strength training while she recovered. She looks at the rotten bread and thinks this is the best food she can get, knowing the maids almost certainly side with her stepmother and that she cannot rely on any of them. She swells with the urge to beat the people who hurt Dahlia, but in her scrawny body there is nothing she can do. Later she slips into the kitchen hoping for more, only to look up in shock as the butler stands in the doorway and asks what she is doing there. She grits her teeth, cursing that she missed her chance to run and prepares to fight her way out. Just then, a knight stops by the doorway and asks if everything is all right. She hides behind the door. He lies smoothly, claiming he just finished his work and came to grab a drink. Once the knight leaves, he turns back to her and asks if she's Lady Dahlia. She quickly replies, "Yes, that's right." She starts to say something else but stops her and picks up a basket of fruit and hands it to her. He apologizes deeply, saying this is all he can offer the madam's beloved daughter. She smiles and thanks him, thinking he must have known her birth mother. Even in this horrible house, she's glad there's at least one person on Dahlia's side. But not every day is going to go this well. The next morning at breakfast, the table is full of delicious food, and she wonders if it's the butler's doing. Looks like the food situation might be handled, but the real problem now is training with the sword. She doesn't even have one yet, and she worries whether she can make it to the night trial in time. She turns at the sound of voices and spots her stepmother and sister through the window, both glowing with excitement. They're finally heading to the capital. Her half-sister catches her eye with an evil smirk and says it's only the two of them going shopping. What she doesn't know is that Dahlia's actually glad, they'll be gone, and she'll be free. Later, she slips out, disguised as a boy, and heads for the market. At the weapon shop, the shopkeeper eyes her and says she still looks like a kid, asking where her parents are. She straightens and answers that she's here alone. Determination laces her voice as she declares she wants to be a knight and has come to buy a sword so she can start training. She explains she needs something light enough to carry, but still sharp enough to take down an opponent. After some searching, she picks up a blade and exclaims that it's perfect. The shopkeeper grins, saying it's sharp as hell but built light, and that only someone with the right grip could handle it. After buying the sword, she strolls through the market to check out the rest of the stalls. Later, she buys some cotton candy and beams with delight. In her old life, there was no way she'd ever be caught buying something this cute in public. Back when she was the head of the girl gang, she was always called tough, cool, unshakable, and she didn't want to ruin that image, so she played the part everyone expected from her. But honestly, she loved sweet stuff. She liked shoujo manga and otome games too. She had to work so hard to keep that side of her a secret, though there was one person who found out. His name was Miyabi. He looked like a model student, but deep down he was that terrifying leader of a biker gang, the kind that made even grown men cry. If she remembers right, she found him collapsed on the side of the road. At first, she was only supposed to stay until his injuries healed, just a few days. But for some reason, Miyabi took a liking to him after that, and even after he recovered, he wouldn't leave her alone. Eventually he even found out about her girly side, but he never told anyone. Thinking back, it feels almost nostalgic now. She wonders if he freaked out when she died but quickly dismisses the thought. With his cold-as-ice reputation, he probably didn't even flinch. He's most likely already forgotten her. Now that she recalls, it happened in an alley just like this one. The thought barely forms when her gaze lands on a figure sprawled on the ground and her breath catches. An injured man lies there, motionless. For a moment, she stands frozen, unsure if her mind is playing tricks on her. Then instinct takes over, and she dashes to his side, trembling as she kneels beside him. His breathing is faint. She blurts out she will get a doctor, pleading with him not to die on her out there. When the doctor examines him, he mutters that had she arrived even minutes later, the man wouldn't have survived. He frowns at the noble-style attire, murmuring about the danger of getting caught up in aristocratic trouble, then leaves her to watch over the patient. She sits nearby, studying his face under the dim light. Even battered and wrapped in bandages, there's something striking about him. Suddenly it hits her. Those long tied-up strands of hair, those gold eyes, that gentle, kind expression. That noble-like air. She knows this face. It's Hedera, in disguise. Hedera Grady is the first prince of the Balan Empire. In the game he was the most popular love interest, hands down. In one scenario, he disguised himself and sneaked into the capital to have some fun. He slowly stirs awake, his golden eyes flickering open before narrowing at her. His voice comes out cold and rough as he asks why she saved him. She should have just let him die. For a moment, she stands frozen, unable to believe what she's hearing. Then shock turns to rage and she grabs his collar and snarls at him not to talk like dying means nothing, that there are people out there fighting like hell just to keep living, and saying that the person who saved him makes it beyond rude. But just as quickly, she lets go of his collar and mutters an apology, remembering he's royalty. He waves a hand dismissively, and for a moment, she's struck by how much his tone reminds her of Miyabi. He says he was simply tired of waking up to the same dull life, so he figured he might as well end it. She says that since he couldn't go through with it, maybe he's meant to live after all, and calls it his bad luck that she found him. The words feel eerily familiar, almost exactly what she once told Miyabi. He laughs then, like she said the funniest thing in the world. It makes her chest tighten with unease. She quickly says he's fine now and turns to leave, but he catches her hand, pulling her back just enough to say he owes her his life and that her words reminded him why he wants to keep living. She slips her hand free, forcing a faint smile as she replies that it's good to hear, then bolts out the door. Outside, she exhales, tugging her hat lower, hoping he didn't figure out who she really was. Meanwhile he has a faint smirk on his lips as he murmurs, "Finally found you." A week later, with her stepmother and sister away, Dahlia decides it's the perfect time to sneak in some training. As she passes through the hall, a few staff members huddle over a newspaper, whispering about how the prince has gone missing. She freezes mid-step, her gaze flicking toward them. The prince? Missing? It's already been a week since she ran into him, and yet, he still hasn't returned to the capital. Right now, the crown prince candidates in this country are the first Prince Hedera and the third Prince Sugri, the son of the current empress. The strongest candidate is said to be the eldest first Prince Hedera, but he lost the support of his mother. For the record, the second prince died in a carriage accident with his mother. There were shady rumors surrounding the accident, but the truth remains unknown. Meanwhile, the current empress and her corrupt noble allies who stuff their own pockets are backing the third prince, Sugri. She thinks the house of Marquis Agnes was supposed to stay neutral, but her thoughts halt when the maid whispers that the lady of the house might have something to do with the first prince's disappearance. The words snap her to attention. The maid continues, saying she overheard the lady speaking in secret with a guest from the capital. Dahlia stiffens, her mind racing. If that's true, then the house of Agnes might be an enemy of Hetera. She wonders if a main route character could really die before Dahlia does. With that stepmother, she wouldn't put it past her. And if that happens, they can never level up. Outside, Dahlia trains with her sword when a familiar voice breaks the still air. Hetera stands there with a calm smile, as if he's been watching her for some time. She nearly calls his name but stops herself, pressing a hand to her mouth. She then asks if he's alright now. He replies that he is so long as he doesn't push himself too hard. Her lips twitch into a nervous smile. Why hasn't he returned to the palace yet? Then, with an amused tilt of his head, he remarks that it's rather strange for a girl to be practicing swordsmanship. His smirk widens. Does she actually plan to become a knight? Truly offended, she huffs if one has the skill, gender shouldn't matter. She will prove that even a girl can become a knight. For a moment he just studies her, then smiles faintly and says that fire in her eyes. It reminds him of someone he could never forget. After a pause, he adds, almost offhandedly, he hasn't properly introduced himself, has he? He is this kingdom's first prince. She smiles nervously, not knowing how to introduce herself. He steps forward, takes off her hat, and her hair spills free. He smiles, a quiet glint in his golden eyes as he softly says, she is truly beautiful. Then he calls her by the name Dahlia and thanks her for saving him. Shock flashes across her face. He only laughs, saying, she thought he had forgotten. They met once, when they were just children. At that party, as always, her stepmother and sister had left her to stand alone in the corner wishing she could disappear, until he noticed her. Back then, he'd walked straight up to her with that same unshakable confidence and introduced himself. Why the prince would even speak to her, she had no idea. But her lonely heart was completely stolen by him in that one moment. Now he smiles and offers to help her with her sword training. She admits that it's incredibly tempting, but points out that it's about time he returned to the capital. Rumors of his disappearance are everywhere. He explains that one of his attendants was badly injured during the attack, so while the man recovers, he decided to stay here for a while. Besides, it isn't such a bad arrangement for him. A few days later, during another training session, she loses another match and collapses onto the grass, panting. He looks down at her, amused, and admits her progress is impressive. Settling beside her, perfectly calm and barely winded, he draws a quiet contrast between them. She weakly points out how strong he is, then asks how someone like him ended up so badly wounded. He meets her eyes and says a person with no will to live is no different from a corpse. She stares at him, startled, asking what he means, but he simply replies that it's nothing she needs to know. Silence falls between them. Then, without warning, he leans in close, his face hovering inches from hers, and plucks a leaf from her hair. This was stuck to her, he says with a small smile. Her cheeks flush. For a fleeting moment, she almost feels like the heroine of a story. He straightens up and shifts the topic, saying that her current level of practice should be enough to pass the entrance exam. After all, the royal knights value skill above all else. When he offers to put in a word for her, she quickly refuses, saying she would resent him if he did. Victory only matters if she earns it herself. He studies her for a moment, smiling faintly, and that look reminds her too much of Miyabi. She hates that. Before either of them can say more, a voice cuts through the clearing. So this is where he keeps disappearing every night. A tall man with navy blue hair and sharp purple eyes steps out from the shadows. The prince says that it took him long enough to track him down, ever the loyal dog. The man scowls. Loyal? He was just targeted for assassination. Dahlia freezes. She knows that face. That man is Ajiga, the one who appears in Dahlia's death route. Ajiga is Hetera's personal aide, and in Dahlia's downfall route he's the one who personally kills her. He is dangerous. Suddenly, Dahlia finds herself staring down the edge of his sword. He demands who she is and whether she has any idea whom she's speaking to. Before she can draw her own blade, Hetera steps between them, shooting a glare at his aide. Ajiga watches His Highness from afar, wondering when was the last time he looked this happy. Perhaps 10 years ago, back when the first prince was almost too innocent for someone in his position. He remembers that day vividly. His Highness had told him the knights were preparing in the garden. Ajiga, ever the cautious one, reminded him he was the first prince and should show some restraint. Just then, Marquis Agnes appeared, his voice smooth and polite as he greeted His Highness. "It has been too long," he said. He mentioned he had a daughter around his age, and if he was willing, perhaps he could speak with her at the upcoming tea party. He smiled and agreed easily that he would be happy to. Her name, the Marquis said, was Dahlia. She looked very much like his late wife, with silver hair and eyes like rubies. The smile died on his face and the color drained from his face. And before Ajiga could react, His Highness collapsed in the middle of the hallway. When Ajiga saw him next time, he had become cold, like a completely different person. He missed how he used to be, but at the same time he felt proud, like he had taken one step closer to becoming a true emperor. And yet for some reason His Highness genuinely seemed excited to meet Lady Dahlia at that tea party. From that day on, he began drifting through life, looking completely uninterested in everything. But the way he was just now with Lady Dahlia, so focused and alive. There is no doubt Lady Dahlia is having some sort of effect on him. In the mansion, Dahlia's voice echoes sharply in her room as she huffs in frustration that the night trials are being held in the capital, and if they are that far, she will need to arrange a carriage. Before she can think further, the butler steps in and says that the maid assigned to assist her is unwell, so he came in her place. She regards him warily. She thought the head butler to be an ally, but now doubts creep in and she wonders if she should confront him directly. He meets her gaze with calm composure and says that she intends to join the Royal Knights, doesn't she? She straightens, admitting that she does, then asks if he plans to stop her. A faint smile curves his lips as he replies that he has no such intention. In fact, he wishes to assist her. When he adds that he will arrange a carriage for her in secret, she blinks in surprise, asking if he would truly go that far for her, knowing the consequences if her stepmother discovers it. He answers softly that until now, he has never once been of any real help to her and he no longer wishes to live with regret. Her voice gentles as she tells him he has done nothing wrong, that it was the pressure from her father and stepmother, not his fault. The butler says she is too kind, and promises that in 3 days, a carriage will be waiting beyond the estate grounds. She thanks him earnestly. As he turns to leave, he suddenly pauses and glances back, his tone quieter when he asks if she resents the master. The anger that flickers across her face answers before her words can. The butler sighs and says that while it is true the master changed, never once did he pressure him and that he truly did love her. Startled, she frowns and demands why he is saying this. He replies that he knows it sounds too convenient, but the master has always kept her in his thoughts. She notes the head butler doesn't look like he is lying, and if this is actually true, the original Dahlia would have been overjoyed. After all, she kept craving her family's love right to the end. 3 days later, Dahlia steps out, her bag prepared only to freeze when her stepmother's sharp voice cuts through the air, demanding what on earth she's wearing. She asks if she has no shame and suddenly orders her to come to her room at once. She needs to be punished. But Dahlia meets her gaze head-on and declares that she has nothing to say to her, and whatever she chooses to do is none of her business. Her tone hardens as she adds that her stepmother never once treated her like her own daughter, so why should she keep pretending to obey her? The words strike deep, and her stepmother's face twists with fury before she slaps Dahlia hard across the cheek. Who does she think raised her this far? The woman hisses. Dahlia straightens and replies coldly that she doesn't remember ever asking her to. The stepmother, trembling with rage, orders the maid to lock this brat in the dungeon immediately. Before the maid can move, her father's voice echoes from behind them, asking what all the commotion is about. Her stepmother quickly turns to him, claiming that Dahlia is repaying all the love she gave her with betrayal. But her father barely spares her a glance and instead turns to Dahlia. He says calmly that she is to leave this house for now, the head butler will make all the necessary arrangements and she is to go with him. Dahlia stares, stunned, wondering if he just helped her, and what in the world is happening. When she hesitates, her father glances at her again and tells her not to be so tense. The butler already told him everything. He knows she wants to go to the capital. She looks confused, wondering whose side the butler is even on and asks if her father plans to lock her up instead. He replies evenly if he did, would she give up on becoming a knight? Her answer is sharp and certain no matter what she has to do, she will make it to the capital. He quietly says then there's no reason to stop her. For a moment, she stands there speechless, before her anger rises again and she yells after him not to dare act like a father now, not after ignoring everything until this day. He stops and turns around, admitting softly that she's right, and that's exactly why she should go. The head butler is waiting. As she steps into the carriage, she pauses and glances back at her father, saying with bitter calm that she'll give him one last piece of advice. Does he really think it is okay to leave his wife unchecked? She thinks just because his wife was behind the prince's assassination attempt doesn't mean he was too. So this is her parting gift. He only meets her eyes one last time and tells her to take care of herself. On the road to the capital, her journey is interrupted when a group of bandits ambush the carriage. Dahlia steps out, excited. It's been far too long since she's had a proper fight, and for once, she welcomes it. When it's over, the bandits are tied to a tree, groaning. She demands to know who sent them, and one stammers that they were only paid to kill her, nothing more. So they don't even know who hired them. Before she can press further, a familiar voice calls out from behind her. Turning, she finds Hedera standing there, a faint smile playing on his lips as he greets her and says he was worried she wouldn't make it to the capital safely, but, glancing at the bound bandits, he adds that it seems he needn't have worried after all. Ajiga lifts a hand and points past her and mutters she doesn't mean to tell him she took out all those men by herself, not the knights from House Agnes standing behind her. Dahlia blinks in surprise and turns around, only to see the group of armored knights she hadn't even noticed before. So that explains why they let her leave the mansion so easily. One of them steps forward, drawing his sword, demanding who the hell these men are and warning them to stay away from Lady Dahlia. Before tension can rise further, Ajiga orders them to lower their blades, his voice sharp with authority, announcing that the man they're threatening is none other than His Highness, Prince Hedera, the first prince of this kingdom. The knights immediately pale and stammer their apologies. The prince waves a hand, dismissing them, and asks if the Marquis is the one who sent them to protect Dahlia. Dahlia's expression darkens at that. What is father even doing lately? She wonders. Working with that woman? It was clearly her stepmother who sent those bandits to kill her, but if they're working together, then why send guards too? Hedera's eyes flick to her and he says that at the very least, it doesn't seem like the Marquis is against her actions. You really think so? She mutters, disbelief slipping into her tone. He steps closer and brushes his knuckles gently against her bruised cheek, finally seeing she is hurt. He glances toward the tied-up bandits and asks which one of them did this to her. She exclaims. It wasn't them. He asks then who did it. She insists she is fine and says she should be heading to the capital. Her attention shifts toward one of the horses nearby, a spark of fascination in her eyes. Hedera catches it immediately and smirks. She likes horses, she should ride with him. Her hands shoot up and she blurts she has never ridden before, and riding his horse feels like too much, she quickly adds. He replies he would rather not let her travel alone, it's too risky. So, front or back? She mumbles back, and before she can protest further, he's already pulling her up behind him, instructing her to hold on tight. As the horse takes off, he says feels amazing, doesn't it? She is handling it surprisingly well for a first time. She doesn't say it out aloud, but it is his broad back that makes her feel so safe. She's not scared at all. That reminds her she rode behind Miyabi once too. It was a motorcycle that time though. She wonders what happened to her own bike. She has avoided thinking about it, but maybe she really did die. Suddenly, the prince laughs softly, catching her off guard. He says he's just glad they get to ride together again. Again. She blinks, but before she can ask, he ends it with a quiet, careful. Arriving at the imperial capital, her face lights up with pure delight. The streets are lined with delicious shops that make her eyes sparkle. The prince smiles, teasing her not to get too carried away and lose track of everyone. She shoots him a look and says he should stop treating her like a child. Her gaze drifts to a stall selling cotton candy, but she hesitates, thinking something that cute doesn't suit her. He catches her thoughtful expression and asks what she's thinking. That's when she remembers she's in Dahlia's body and quickly orders one. As she takes a bite, the prince watches her with an amused smile. She glances up just as he leans in, taking a bite from the exact spot she was eating, his face suddenly far too close. Her cheeks burn as he licks a bit of sugar from his lips and murmurs that it's sweet, his eyes still locked on hers. Her blush deepens, but then worry flickers across her face. There's something off about him, something she can't quite name. He notices and asks if something's wrong. She quickly says it's nothing, though the unease lingers. He looks exactly like the prince from the game, yet something feels different. Later, at the reception hall, she approaches the clerk and says she's here to take the entrance exam. The The man directs her but looks puzzled, clearly not used to seeing a woman among the candidates. Ignoring the murmurs, she walks forward, thinking it shouldn't be that strange. Just then, she overhears a few people whispering about a prodigy who's sure to pass. Following their gaze, her eyes widen. Shiran? She blurts out his name, catching his attention. Shiran is the second son of Duke Mardell. His father is the commander of the Royal Knights. And he is one of the romance options in the Otomo game. Dahlia never showed up in his route, but she loved how he climbed the ranks even under pressure and became commander. With a confident grin, she extends her hand and introduces herself as Dahlia Agnes, secretly hoping she gets to be his rival. He barely spares her a glance before muttering that she would be better off keeping her distance. Her smile doesn't falter, she knows he's the aloof type. She then asks if it's really so strange for a woman to want to become a knight. There's no rule against women taking the exam, after all, and she's more than ready to cast aside her family name if she has to. He studies her quietly before remarking that in neighboring kingdoms, female knights are already thriving. Her eyes light up as she exclaims exactly, in the end, skill is what truly matters. Her voice bubbles with enthusiasm as she adds she is really excited for the test and she cannot see where to see the look on everyone's face when she blows them away. He ends up smiling a little at her excitement. Later, she studies her certificate of admission. Maybe all that training with Hetera really paid off. Still, when it comes to sheer skill, Shiran is on a completely different level. Passing isn't enough, she needs to become stronger. A low voice cuts through her thoughts. There you are. She looks up and finds Shiran standing before her. Quickly rising to her feet, she asks if something's wrong. He says he heard she was staying at an inn and remembers she came here ready to give up her family name. She assures him she's fine, aside from the limited freedom, and thanks him for checking on her. The next words leave her speechless. He casually says she should come home with him. He clarifies he means until the induction ceremony, she should stay at his estate as a guest, that way, she can move around freely. She hesitates, murmuring that it's a generous offer but wonders if she'd only be a burden. For the first time, he gives her a real smile and says it's fine, if anything, she'll be the one surprised. His words pique her curiosity, but she accepts, adding that if she gets the chance to spar with him there, it'll make the stay even better. He sits beside her, his tone as curt as ever as he mutters that it's too crowded here, they should leave. That bluntness, it's so him, she thinks, amused. That awkward charm is probably what makes girls fall for him. When they arrive at his estate, she can't help but gape. His residence makes her own household look like a shack. As he leaves her in the care of the staff, one of Rose Mardell's maids steps forward to greet her. Rose is Shiran's sister, the villain of his route. She is so obsessed with her little brother she ends up going off the rails. Dahlia never thought she would get to meet her in person. As the maids escort Dahlia to Rose's room, she takes in the grand, dramatic space and thinks it looks exactly like a villain's room. Rose eyes her from head to toe and hums thoughtfully, saying her looks are passable, which makes Dahlia's eyes narrow. Passable? This gorgeous face. Rose adds that aiming to be a knight is shameful for a lady and then deliberately lets her fan slip from her hand and commands Dahlia to pick it up if she wants to stay there and show respect. Dahlia grits her teeth but kneels, only to drop it again with a sly smile. Oh, she dropped it too. Wouldn't it be faster if she picked it up herself? Rose's face twists in rage and she snaps at her to get out. She thinks she can insult a duke's daughter and walk away free. Dahlia retorts the royal knights are based on merit. Her words sound like an insult to the throne. And what's so wrong with a female knight anyway? Rose scoffs, chin high. Noblewomen build connections, flatter men, and live in luxury. She might never get a marriage offer, isn't she afraid? Not in the slightest, Dahlia replies, she wants to live freely. Rose grits her teeth and mutters unbelievable. At that moment, Shiran appears and calls Dahlia's name. Rose immediately clings to him, cooing, oh, he came to see her. He grumbles how many times has he told her not to act like this in public. And she didn't do anything to her, right? Rose admits innocently, of course not. But she has to respect her guts for talking back. Dahlia is utterly confused by her. Once alone, he apologizes for his sister, but she quickly waves it off. Then, grinning, she points out, he just called her by her name. He asks was that a problem? She replies not at all, smiling radiantly. It just made her feel closer to him and that makes her happy. He watches her and for a moment, her brightness catches him off guard. His cheeks heat up and he mutters she is embarrassing before looking away. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part.